The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Welcome. We are loaded up on this Friday, just a couple of Fridays. One Friday, if you don't include this one, until it's football time in Tennessee. T-minus 15 days, if I'm counting correctly. And it's a good time to be DeSean Bishop, Ricky Gibson, and maybe Peyton Lewis, too. We'll talk about that. It's Tennessee with a scrimmage on Thursday, this day in Tennessee sports history. Also, the Vols have taken advantage of the COVID eligibility year, much like Michigan did last year in a different sort of way. Well, it comes to an end soon. Does that rob the Vols of depth eventually? Because they played that about as well as anybody. The stat of the day, and Hooker's Corner today focuses on one of the top prospects that makes me feel old because his last name's Whitten. So I wonder who he might be related to. Hit like and subscribe. We're loaded up. And would it be panic time if the Vols missed the playoffs? Now, I believe, Caleb, soon it's going to be panic time for pretty much every contending team if they don't make the playoffs. But I don't think we're quite there yet. We'll get into it. First of all, how are you, Caleb Calhoun?
I am good. Happy Friday, Dave. How are you doing?
Happy Friday to you. We'll have picks before long as the football season is right around the corner. So go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why Banks & Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle and settle for less. Banks & Jones, ready to go to trial for you. banksandjones.com. Truly Tennessee's trial attorney. Why settle? banksandjones.com with T. Scott Jones. It's today's tough question now.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Caleb, this is specifically for you. Do you think I can change your mind about DeSean Bishop? Do you think I can change your mind about DeSean Bishop? So that's today's tough question, because I've got some news for you about Tennessee's local running back who's just kind of an add-on, who's just kind of that guy that's getting in there because Peyton Lewis isn't ready. I'm ready to try to change your mind. Do you think I can change it? Because you've been of the mindset, which I would have been at most of the time, that they're playing DeSean Bishop because they have to, and the other guys aren't ready. Do you think I can change your mind? Because I got info. Give me a scale of 1 to 10 chance, because I think Bishop may well be your second string tailback.
You can change my mind a lot more than you were able to just 3 days ago.
Okay.
And,
so,
yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And the reason being is I can't ignore what Heupel said about Bishop yesterday. And I can't ignore the fact that guy clearly runs hard. And I've said for a while, y'all think being a Memphis kid, I just hate on Nashville. No, I actually break down recruiting numbers. I should hate on Knoxville as a Memphis kid. But Knoxville kids are traditionally vastly underrated.
Yes.
And they, particularly when they go play for Tennessee.
Okay, so Bishop at Carnes High School, this is why he can be Tennessee's second leading rusher this year, and everything's copacetic. I'm not saying he's going to be electric and he's going to be one of the best tailbacks that Tennessee's ever had, but Tennessee can be just fine. And I think he's a little bit of a poor man's Dylan Sampson, which fits if Tennessee tries to go a little bit more horizontal in the flats and also a little bit further downfield. I think they're going to do that on the perimeter with Dylan Sampson a lot. Portions of the program brought to you by Don Self. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, they built their business on taking care of their customers. In the greater Chattanooga area, call 423-396-2126 or go to donself.net, donself.net. Reason number one that I'm going to give you, and then I want to get to Sims's comments that you referenced, is he was one of the players along with Peyton Lewis, Dont'e Thornton, and Squirrel White that had a fantastic scrimmage on Thursday. So what makes DeSean Bishop different from those other three guys? He's not as physically talented from a size-speed ratio. However, I think it's past the point of he's just a good story. Caleb, your thoughts?
I can believe it's past that point. Maybe you just brought up Dylan Sampson. Maybe between DeSean Bishop and Dylan Sampson, one of the two is actually willing to get a little physical and pick up blitzes and block people when they're rushing after the quarterback. Maybe one of them is willing to sacrifice his body a little bit more for the team than the other one. I'm just saying, just throwing it out there. Maybe someone's not scared of contact as a running back.
Yeah. Now, I think Dylan Sampson, from people I've talked to, there were some miscommunications in the Citrus Bowl. So I'm not worried about his pass protection nearly as much as you, but I am worried about pass protection as a whole. I don't care if they run Caleb Calhoun out there. If you can't protect Nico Iamaleava, you need to get off the field. Just get away. Okay, here's another reason that I'm going to toot DeSean Bishop's horn. That sounds weird. All right, let's look back at that 2018 UCF team that was coached by whom, Caleb?
Josh Heupel.
All right, and how did that team do?
They went 12-0 in the regular season.
Okay, so I have UCF's tailbacks pulled up. I got Taj McGowan, 6'1", 210 pounds. Adrian Killens Jr., 5'8", 164. He didn't play. Montavious Thompson, 6'1", 197 pounds. Greg McCray, 5'10", 175 pounds. Trillian Coles, running back, 5'8", 180 pounds. He didn't play either. Point is, their two biggest backs were 6'1", 200 pounds, and 210 pounds, respectively. I believe this is what Josh Heupel wants. He wants these top of tailbacks. He just hasn't had it. They tried to get Jabari Small, but he wasn't quick enough. He wasn't fast enough. And then Jalen Wright was a good punishing back that they took advantage of because they needed to, because they had issues in their passing game. But I think that given Jalen Wright and Dylan Sampson, I think Josh Heupel's offense would rather have a Dylan Sampson.
I think,
and you can call me crazy,
I think Josh Heupel's offense got away with that at UCF because he was at UCF. I don't think they would want to get away with that in the SEC or at Tennessee. You need that feature back that can get again, we got to clarify here. It's all relative. Nobody's really going to get 20 carries a game anymore in this offense, but you still need that feature back that can take a level of punishment that, quite honestly, a lot of those UCF backs would not be able to do at this level. So I think it's totally different. I don't think they can build around a Dylan Sampson or even a DeSean Bishop. I think they do need a Peyton Lewis of some sorts that could run between the guards, not between the tackles, between the guards, take some punishment, and pick up pass pro consistently. Again, at UCF, they were playing at the American Athletic Conference, and it's just a totally different vibe altogether. You still need that physical back. And whatever you want to say about Jabari Small, and there's a lot we could say about him, he was physical. He was a physical player. He played hard. He blocked hard. He did what he needed to do. Jabari Small, I felt, was the perfect type of back for Heupel's system at the SEC level, in the sense of he didn't have to be good or great, but he was at the very least serviceable. And with the great interior run blocking that Tennessee had, I think Tennessee, I think they're going to miss Jabari Small this year. And I'll tell you this, I think Jabari Small is going to regret the fact that he didn't stay at Tennessee this year, because he would have gotten a ton of carries and had a great chance to shine had he stayed.
Yeah, while I don't like Jabari Small, particularly as an elite back, I agree with you. If you have that sort of depth, proven depth in the backfield, Tennessee might be a top 10 or 12 team ranked? I mean, because there's two things you can point to a Tennessee's football team. You can point to, real easy, you can point to running back depth, defensive back. And that's going to be the narrative for somebody on, let's say, in the Midwest that doesn't know anything about Tennessee. But if you took that away, it's well, if they can shore up that secondary, this could be a championship team. Yeah, it would change the narrative absolutely, completely. Now, Tennessee's tailbacks, I want to agree with you. They would rather have a Peyton Lewis be a guy that's knocking people around, and you have that guy, and he's every bit the athlete to make plays in the passing game and to do other things in the offense besides just run the football. Trust me, I'm not arguing with you. If I have to choose between a 5'11", 200-pound guy and a 6'1", 230-pound guy, I'm taking the latter. And that's what Peyton Lewis, I believe, is going to be. I just don't believe it's going to be this year. So the question I posted on our YouTube page is pretty simple. It's brought to you by the Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Go to Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. Hooked for 10% off. The question is, wow, we're really split. Are you comfortable with DeSean Bishop being the Vols' second string back? Number one, yes, he's got it. Or number two, nope, not gifted enough. Caleb, I'll ask you that question. I've had my opportunity to change your mind. Did I do so?
No, because I'm still on the not gifted enough. I respect him running hard. I respect him playing hard, but I just think there are sometimes limitations. I mean, to throw out a name, Dave, Mark Levine played hard.
That's fair.
But he wasn't Jamal Lewis.
Or Eric Berry. Yeah, so, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was thinking of Mark Jones. But anyway, yes.
Mark Jones. Mark Jones. Yeah, no, I say Mark Levine, the running back number 19 for Tennessee, who started the 97 season. I don't think it wasn't that he played hard, didn't play hard. I think there was just Jamal Lewis on that team.
Okay, you know the biggest, okay, that's going to be brought up if Peyton Lewis turns out to be a star. If he doesn't play early, they're going to say, why in the world didn't you play him earlier, right? We said that with Nico last year. Okay, but you know the biggest difference is that Mark Levine team, if you want to go back and look at that Florida team when Jamal Lewis became a superstar the next week at Georgia, they didn't run the football, period. I don't care who was lined up at running back. They should have been more they should have been more dedicated to running the football. And Josh Heupel always will be. That's the biggest difference between the two instances.
That's true. And quick for history, it was stupid because they didn't put Jamal Lewis out there for pass pro, but honestly, Mark Levine struggled to protect Peyton Manning in that Florida game too. And Peyton Manning got wrecked every time he was getting rid of the ball. Yes. And he couldn't run the ball. There was no running game. So there was really no threat at all to take pressure off him anyway. Agreed. At least with Jamal Lewis, even if he can't pass pro, he could have run the ball.
Our stat of the day, which is coming up, also this day in Tennessee sports history, could actually be the number of carries Mark Levine had against Florida that year. Do you know what they are?
I actually don't.
If I gave you the over, because I do. If I gave you the over-under at 9.5, would you say over or under?
Oh, I think I'd say under. I think I'd absolutely say under.
You'll never be under the jail if you go with Banks and Jones, T. Scott Jones, the show represented by Banks and Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, BanksJones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
How about we get to some practice takeaways? What do you think about that? The mid-season report card or takeaways, whatever we shall call it. Also, this day in Tennessee sports history coming up. Did you have a chance to look at that Mark Levine stat? I don't want it to be the stat of the day. I want it to be better than that, but I believe he had 9 carries. I know you're curious like a cat, so I thought, and we've lost your microphone for some reason. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button while Caleb turns himself on. Do we have you on?
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, yes, we have me on now.
Yes, we have you.
I'm trying to pull up the stats. So, yeah, Mark Levine had, wow, Dave, way below. He had 4 carries in that game.
4 carries. Jamal Lewis wouldn't have won the game with 4 carries.
Jamal Lewis actually had 5. He had more than Mark Levine in that game. Peyton Manning threw it. This is insane. Threw it 51 times. And here's the.
I thought it was 49.
Here's the crazy part about it. So remember, 4 years later, for those who don't know, this drove Steve Spurrier into retirement or leaving Florida. But when John Shea was finally figured out the Prowler package, do you remember that last game Tennessee won in the Swamp, Dave? When Steve Spurrier got very flustered down the stretch, and he threw it with Rex Grossman like 52 times out of desperation.
Yep, I do. Tennessee with a scrimmage, and it's time to talk some mid-season takeaways. Now, it's kind of mid-season. I want to be clear. It's kind of mid-season, but it's kind of not. You're midway through August, but they'll start game week preparation in approximately 9 days. So that isn't really preseason camp, but it kind of is, and it serves the purpose of 4 downs today. Mid-camp takeaways for the Vols 4 downs is now, and it's brought to you by Medicare Misty.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
I got some wild and woolly ones too. You ready? Because I mean, some of these are out there, Caleb. I'm afraid you might think I'm crazy, or I might get the.
That's crazy.
I hope not, but one of them has to do with Nico
Iamaleava.
All right, Coop. What should we do? By the way, a new Vol report with Cooper Mays brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity Matters. 50 years in East Tennessee coming up this weekend. But let's get to those mid-preseason practice takeaways.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe. Coop here. First down.
Something happens to Nico. It's Gaston Moore. Gaston Moore ran with the first team yesterday. Nico Iamaleava was out with a stomach bug. Everything looked just fine from those that I talked to. So I'm just telling you, Jake Merklinger may end up being the greatest quarterback since Johnny Unitas. But this is going to be Gaston Moore's offense, especially early. If something happens to Nico, I'm going to speculate that even late it would. And I'm here to tell you that this offense, even with a limited player in terms of physical ability, will be fantastic if somebody knows the intricacies of it. I'm not saying they'll be as good with Moore as they would with Nico, but I'm telling you shouldn't raise the red flag if Gaston Moore is your backup. You don't want to lose Nico no matter what. But I've heard great things about Gaston Moore for 2 years, and I'm going to continue to preach from that soapbox.
You can continue to preach from it. That just means Jake Merklinger hasn't arrived to me. Okay. I'm sorry.
Too. To me, that's about 30% of it. About 70% of it is Gaston Moore knows it.
Dave, how have you been a guy who's covered practice so intently for 25, 30 years and not realize that when coaches tout walk-ons, 90% of the time, it just means that the guys they wanted to be the backups in that spot are not good or as good as they thought.
This is true.
And now you're following John Bishop. You're falling for Gaston Moore. Dave, it's by default. The people they want to emerge at those spots are not emerging. It's more of a red flag than it is a positive.
Okay, I disagree because I think Moore Moore's like 38 years old. Merklinger's, 18.
You keep falling for the trap. You keep falling for the trap of head coaches lying to you.
You have, yeah.
I'm
Trust me. No,
I know you know that when they lie.
I'm going by their actions, and you would have to admit more running out there means he's the second string back. But let me ask you, how much of it's more? How much of it is Merklinger? And Merklinger did get first team snaps too. I'm not saying that he didn't get any first team snaps.
I think it's Merklinger not emerging.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's Merklinger not emerging. I think Jake Merklinger has not emerged the way they want him to. They're not believing in him. And I think that's the issue right now.
All right. Takeaway. Here we go. Second down, Coop.
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
I'm here to tell you right now that Dont'e Thornton is going to have an impact on this receiver core. And that's the only statement I'm going to make. I don't know how. I don't know where. I don't know outside. I don't know inside. But his name's come up too often. He's too talented. His head wasn't in the right space last year. Not in a bad way, but wasn't in the right space last year. Caleb, he's going to be a factor. He's going to swing a game at some point this year.
Dont'e Thornton specifically?
Yeah, Dont'e Thornton, yes. And then I've got third and fourth down coming up.
I think Dont'e Thornton could definitely swing a game. I think he I think he would have swung. He could have swung the Missouri game. Remember, he gave Tennessee the lead last year and then got hurt on that play for the season. So I think I could see Dont'e swinging a game. I could see him absolutely swinging a game. I don't know if it's – I still think I disagree with you, but for different reasons with Gaston Moore and DeSean Bishop. I think they're desperate at those spots for a backup and a running back. But I think they're so loaded at receiver, I just don't see how Dont'e Thornton swings a game, honestly. I think that right now they're just protecting Brew. They already have left for other receivers that we'll probably mention on this segment. I don't see how Dont'e Thornton swings a game because I think they're too deep.
Okay. What down, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
And to your point, they don't alternate those guys, which is a great point. I don't believe Peyton Lewis is a real factor for this football team in September. I think it's October at best.
And that's why they're turning to DeSean Bishop, and that's why they're in trouble. That's the big issue. They're in trouble because they don't have that running back yet.
See, that's where you and I disagree, though. I think Bishop is going to be a good player. I'm not going to say great player, but I think he's going to be a good player.
But even Bishop can't be a feature back, and this is the thing. If Peyton Lewis doesn't emerge until October, Tennessee is in trouble.
Okay.
And
now,
that's the real issue.
Right. Last takeaway, and you can go across the board if you would like to. But mid-season takeaways.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
I'm still worried about left guard. Still concerned about left guard. Andre Carrig. Got out there. Listen, you're a transfer. You're a year in the program. You shouldn't be battling for the starting left guard job. Okay. You should be leading. You should have that job wrapped up, especially looking at the guys behind him who are not as physically talented. Left guard's still an issue. That's my final takeaway. Brought to you by Medicare Misty. Let me get your thoughts on that. How concerned should Tennessee be? And I'll remind you that our midseason takeaways brought to you by Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
I remind you, Medicare Misty is licensed in over 40 states, so no matter where you are watching or listening, you can get free Medicare advice from Medicare Misty. Left guard's still a concern, and that's the final major scrimmage. At this point, would you take C+ from left guard?
Yes, and I don't know if they can get C+. You're
too.
right. It's a major concern. I've been screaming this to the high heavens since the end of December last year. I've been saying it. And there is here's something that stood out with me about left guard being a concern. And it happened last year a lot. I criticized Heupel. Do you remember, Dave, how often we criticized him on short yardage plays for not getting under center? when he did it with Princeton Fant all the time in 2022?
Yes.
I think the difference was he had Jerome Carvin at left guard in 2022, and he did have left guard in 2023.
I had not put two and two together, but you that is a great point. And also, let's be honest, Cooper Mays, even though 100% healthy after Florida when he came back, still had conditioning issues because you can't condition unless you're actually in games because of the adrenaline that gets pumping and all that. So, Caleb, I think that's a great point. Maybe he didn't have the faith in the interior of the offensive line to get those tough yards. I hadn't thought of it that way. Fantastic point. Give us 2 minutes, and then we're going to give you this day in Tennessee sports history. And the latest Nico fan is a name very familiar to you, and he says he's the real deal. And this guy knows quarterbacks. He's coached one of the best. 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Fifth year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford & Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2023 Ford Expedition Limited 4x4 $67,950, 2017 Ford F-150 Raptor SVT $41,950, 2023 Ford Escape ST Line $28,940. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
This day in Tennessee sports history coming up on the program. Big time BFL loves him some Nico. Thinks he could be a superstar. Also, the Vols. In case you haven't noticed, they've taken advantage of the COVID eligibility rules with keeping players in hand. That runs out very soon. Is that an issue? Stat of the day also. And would it be panic time if Tennessee missed the playoffs? And the Vol that Tennessee is after, Cooper Whitten. Now, Cooper Whitten, in case you don't know, is Jason Witten's son. So that'll be a part of our Hooker's Corner segment coming up later in the program. It is time for this day in Tennessee sports history. Caleb Calhoun always has a good one as he goes back in time. Let's go 88 miles an hour and see what you got there, Caleb Calhoun.
On this day, 88 years ago. It's funny, you said 88 miles an hour. I'm going 88 years ago with what I'm about to give you. Interesting. Nice. In 1936, Knoxville Journal released Tennessee's football schedule for the 1936 season. The schedules used to come out within 3 weeks of the actual games being played. That's how the SEC did it 4 years in. Robert Nealon was returning from his first stint in military service to take back over Tennessee. And they found out on this day that their opener would be against Chattanooga, who is their opener this year.
That is out there. Repeat that one more time for those that had trouble following it, which may be a lot of us, including me.
Back in the day, your schedule was revealed within a month of the start of the season. And Tennessee, on August the 16th in 1936, the Knoxville Journal released Tennessee's schedule on this day 88 years ago for the 36th season. Robert Nealon was returning from his first stint for his first season of his second stint as Tennessee after going on hiatus for service to the military. And it was revealed that Tennessee's first game would be against Chattanooga, which, by the way, their first game this year is against Chattanooga.
Okay. Now, let's change gears a little bit because we have What the H? And it's brought to you by our good friends at Joe Neubert Collision Center.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
It's good stuff on this day in Tennessee sports history. I like that feature. I like it a lot. Phillip Fulmer had some comments about Nico Iamaleava. Now, let's go through the comments because I think we would all agree that Phillip Fulmer knows him some football and knows some offensive football. So what were the comments that I believe were made during the Eric Ainge show on the Sports Animal in Knoxville?
Yes. Phillip Fulmer was quoted as saying, Nico is for real. I've been around a lot of good ones, but Nico is really, really special. To flesh out a little more, he goes, this young guy, Nico, is for real. He's for real. I've been around a lot of good ones, but the guy's really, really special. We've just got to keep him healthy and keep the younger ones coming too. But if he stays healthy, it could be a very exciting offensive football team, which leads to a really exciting football team. Very standard Fulmer quote, if you know anything about him.
Okay, my question is this. Phillip Fulmer complimenting Nico, saying he's for real, makes me wonder why he's so close to UT. Excited. Nico is for real. Caleb Calhoun, I want to ask you that question.
You want to ask why he's so excited about Tennessee?
No, I want to ask you if specifically this question. And that is, Phillip Fulmer complimenting Nico makes me wonder why he's so close to UT. Excited, Nico is for real. I'm going to give you some backstory on Johnny Majors here in just a second, why he was not beloved, and why maybe Phillip Fulmer shouldn't be beloved. But Caleb, you would say Phillip Fulmer complimenting Nico makes me wonder why he's so close to UT, or excited, Nico is for real. Which would you say?
It would make me, if those are my only two options, I'll go, it'd make me wonder why he's so close to UT still. It wouldn't make me excited because Phillip Fulmer's the ultimate politician as a head coach. So he's not going to be like, I don't believe in Nico. I just don't think he can get it done. I don't think Fulmer's not like Johnny Majors, who you're bringing up.
Yeah, but wait, I'm not even talking about his evaluation because you're right. He's going to play politician. He's not going to go out there and say, man, the guy just can't throw to the flat. You know, he's not going to say that. I get that. But this is that long ago, about 4 years, that was heading up a program that was accused of the worst type of cheating you could do at the time, paying players. The worst type of NCAA cheating, not crimes against humanity, as we pointed out. That was under his watch. So should he be at practice? Should he be around the program? I mean, for goodness gracious, look at what they did to Jeremy Pruitt. They ended his career. Did Phillip Fulmer skate out of this pretty scot-free?
I mean, I think he absolutely did. And they allowed that the minute they gave him that severance package. They paid him to go away. I think they wanted an amicable split. That
doesn't mean you have to have him around practice.
No, but they still want to honor what he did, winning a national title in '98. I mean, I'm largely with you. I think that I personally wouldn't do it. And the reason I wouldn't do it, and I'll just say it up front, it would be one thing, Dave.
Wouldn't do what? You lost
keep Fulmer around the program. Okay. And here's why. It would be one thing if in a time of crisis, Fulmer took over as athletic director because he was asked to, didn't do a good job, and then stepped down. Let's call it what it is. Fulmer orchestrated a coup to give himself the athletic director job. We all know that happened, right? Like he cobbled together a bunch of boosters and supportive people with the university to oust John Curry and make himself athletic director. Because of that extra effort he did, his failures as athletic director has to borderline. I mean, it almost has to outweigh what he did as a head coach at Tennessee. And I think so. Because of that, I personally wouldn't. I understand the university doing it though. And I understand that this is why he got the severance package. The severance package was, please go away. Never say anything negative about us. We'll let you near the program. We'll honor what you did as head coach. We just want to pretend your tenure at athletic director didn't happen.
I'm going to take this a step further. Okay. I think it not only is a ringing endorsement for Nico, I think this is a ringing endorsement for the University of Tennessee and its leadership. I love that Phillip Fulmer is around the program because I grew up during a time in which Johnny Majors would rip Phillip Fulmer and the university at every single golf tournament that he attended. And they would 3 or 4 times during the summer, it would come out and he would say things as clear as a fat Phil stuck a knife in my chest while they were, stuck a knife in my back while they were working on my heart on the operating table. I mean, it was a terrible look for the university. I mean, imagine if that was awful. So you got to keep this as a backdrop. The NCAA has zero power, guys. So the NCAA has zero power. If the NCAA had any power, and they'd be like, yes, we'll get back at you. And I think they do things like that. I think they're doing it to Michigan right now. I think they're giving, and you pointed out, I think they're giving Michigan more than they deserve because they want to get them on the Connor Stallions thing too. And they're mad that Jim Harbaugh left and he really won't face any punishment. If the NCAA still had power, I would not want Phillip Fulmer around, but they do. So now they don't. So now everything's copacetic. He can be an ambassador of the program. There's no question in my mind he could help raise money for the program, Caleb. I think it's a very, very good thing that he is around the program because there is no NCAA.
Okay, let me ask you a question straight up, Dave. Does Phillip Fulmer care about Phillip Fulmer or Tennessee more?
Okay, I will answer that question. And I've been asked it before, but I'll answer it again. And it's brought to you by our friends at Ray Varner. Ray Varner, Ford and Clinton.
And the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford and Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2023 Ford Expedition Limited 4x4 $67,950, 2017 Ford F-150 Raptor SVT $41,950, 2023 Ford Escape ST Line $28,940. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
Sure, he cares about himself more than the university.
Okay.
Absolutely. Most people do. Now, my question for you is, did it affect any of his decisions? Did he make a decision for Phillip Fulmer that hurt the University of Tennessee?
Yeah, Jimmy Pruitt. He wanted to be the guy who found Jimmy Pruitt when no one else did and get all the credit for Jimmy Pruitt. Because Jimmy Pruitt was on nobody's radar.
Well, I'm going to make it harder for you. Can I make it harder for you? Sure. I think that was ignorance. I think that was just a poor job done. Like people can go out and they can have the best intentions and do a terrible job. And I think Tennessee, with a backdrop of total dysfunction, that's the best he could do. I don't think he said, I want to get Jeremy Pruitt so I can get him for cheaper so I can get me more money. I'll give you an example of where Phillip Fulmer, I thought, put himself in front of the university when he would have Jimmy Sexton float his name out there for NFL jobs that he wasn't really a candidate for to get a raise. Now, at the time, his assistants didn't have multi-year contracts. So I've seen it happen before, but I think he's way beyond that now. I mean, he's an older man, and I think he still loves the university as much as just about anything on this earth. Maybe Vicky more, but UT's right up there.
Let's do a twofold with Fulmer versus Majors and why Fulmer's more amicable than Majors. Okay, because I'm not saying, let me be fair. Let me say this up front. I'm not saying Johnny Majors didn't deserve to be fired because it wasn't just the results on the field. Johnny Majors thought he was bigger than the university. And I know the stories. He went out of his way to rub everybody in power the wrong way. Basically, he thought he could say whatever he wanted to whomever he wanted. The same way, honestly, Ed Orgeron thought he could do that at LSU to whomever he wanted. And they couldn't. Now, Majors is smarter than Ed Orgeron. Totally different story. But anyways, the concept is the same. However, think about Johnny Majors' mind, Dave. He left a national title program at Pittsburgh to rebuild his alma mater at Tennessee. He spent 10 long years rebuilding Tennessee. And then by the late 80s, he's got them regularly rolling. The year he gets fired, I know this. There's old LA Times articles on this. The reason he was so mad about getting fired, he always thought the 93 team was going to be his most special team at Tennessee. He got fired in 92. So he's going into the 93 season. That's Heath Schuler. Go back and look at that first team Fulmer coached the full year. They were loaded with talent. Maybe one of the most talented teams Fulmer coached. Johnny Majors felt that was his team. He felt that was 16 years of rebuilding, and this was his chance, and then the rug gets pulled out from under him. Now, contrast that with when Fulmer got fired or removed as athletic director. 2008, he gets fired after going 5-7 because the program had seriously slid from their peaks in the 90s, and it was very obvious. And then he gets fired or steps down as athletic director in 2020 because of the disaster that happened with Jeremy Pruitt. That is a direct reflection on him. So Majors could say that he believed that he had the program on the rise and finally had it where they were his best years with Tennessee were his last 4 years with Tennessee. And Fulmer can't really ignore the fact that both times he was ousted, the program was on a downward slide or a total dumpster fire in that moment. And I don't think he's in a position to feel bitter at Tennessee the way Majors made me feel like he was in a position to feel bitter at Tennessee for.
Okay, I want to move on, but if there's not a change made, does Tennessee win a national championship under Johnny Majors?
No, because I think Johnny Majors had gotten way too arrogant by that point. I think the change was necessary. I'm saying Johnny Majors' perspective. I still think it was the right move to Fulmer, particularly when the biggest reason David Cutcliffe becomes offensive coordinator. And
I would still say, I would agree with you. I would say no, because you would lose that offensive staff. You're not going to get Peyton Manning because you don't have David Cutcliffe. Now, could Phillip Fulmer have taken a job because he didn't get the head coaching job and maybe elevate Cutcliffe? I don't know, but I can't imagine Majors, Cutcliffe, and eventually Chavis.
I think Cutcliffe would follow.
Chavis wouldn't have been.
And Fulmer would have followed Cutcliffe. I mean, Cutcliffe would have followed Fulmer to wherever Fulmer got a job. I don't think.
No, because not necessarily, because you'd be maybe, but
because Fulmer was very loyal to Cutcliffe. He identified Cutcliffe. I mean, I got to say this about Fulmer. One of the smartest things he did, people don't realize, he was the one who pushed to hire Cutcliffe as a grad assistant in the 80s.
Well, David had a lot of ties to the university, and I mean, he has a son who's an associate AD there. So I don't think it's a lock, stock, and barrel, but I would say 80%. He probably goes with Phillip Fulmer. Portions of the program brought to you by our good friends at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million sports treasures and so much more. Follow on Facebook for the best sports memorabilia daily updates. Go to Sports Treasures TN on Facebook at Sports Treasures TN. Turn those notifications on. That is right below us. And it wouldn't be possible if not for them and our good friend Rick Terry. And that is all kinds of prizes that you can win. All you have to do is be a member of Hooker's Corner, which we can put that in the message page, the message board page, or you can click on that QR code. And you can win a Garmin watch if you're a subscriber of this station and a member of Hooker's Corner. That's Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge, brought to you by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Just subscribe to both, and the free membership counts for Hooker's Corner. And you can win a Garmin worth over $1,000 thanks to our good friend Rick Terry at Rick Terry Jewelry Design. I'll remind you, with Rick Terry Jewelry Design, they have the fire opals that are absolutely unbelievable. You will be blown away. The fire opals are gorgeous. Over my shoulder, you can see the two pendants. They've got the State of Tennessee pendant. They've got the Power T pendant and the cufflinks. I know they're kind of hard to see, but you need to check them out at Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. Now, Caleb presented a question to me earlier on in the day that I was a little bit taken aback by, but I think it's going to be the new standard. And we'll ask this on our YouTube question. We'll ask this of you on our message board. Caleb, is it panic time if Tennessee does not make the playoff in 2024?
Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Guys, you don't get to rebuild for 5 years. That's not a thing in college football anymore. It's Josh Heupel's 4th year. The playoff has expanded to 12 teams. It's panic time if he doesn't make the playoff. I would have questioned him if he wasn't going to make the 14 playoff. I think this is the year for Tennessee, and I don't think you get all these extra years to make it, okay? I'm sorry, I don't. Not this day and age of college football. If he can't make a 12-team playoff, yeah, it's panic time. And for the record, I'm going to bring this up about Josh Heupel's resume just a little bit. Guys, look, Josh Heupel, we are all impressed by the work he did to go 7-6 his first year at Tennessee, to make them a top 10 program in 2022, and then last year do what he did. In reality, he's riding the wave of one really, really impressive win, which was Alabama in 2022. I mean, let's be honest. As of right now, he's riding the wave of that win almost 2 years later. And if he doesn't make the playoff this year,
this is a team that beat Florida. You remember 2 years ago?
Oh, a 5-7 Florida team.
Okay, but that's Florida. I mean, that is
your best case was how they blew out LSU in 2022 when Tennessee beat the brakes off them. But I'm not that impressed.
Those are two big wins. You can't discount. I know where you're going. You can't discount the LSU win just because it's in the morning. I mean, it's the factor, but you can't just throw it out the window.
Yes, I can.
Okay, then I can throw out the Georgia loss that when Tennessee lost to Georgia because Eric Ainge got everybody fired up in Athens. I mean,
I'm willing to throw that out. I'm not holding that against Heupel at all.
Okay, so, but you have to give him credit for beating Florida.
No, I don't. That Florida team was terrible. I don't have to give him credit for beating Florida. I can give him blame for losing to Florida last year because it raises red flags about his performance on the road. Now, I'm giving him a pass right now because of the whole Joe Milton situation and all the injuries last year. But I am saying there are red flags there, and he has to quell them this year because they become more red flags and more noticeable if Tennessee doesn't make the playoff this year. If they don't make the playoff, we're all going to start talking about Josh Heupel's issues on the road. We're all going to start talking about the fact that Alabama, that a day in college football where Tennessee fans stormed the field and threw the goalpost in the river, was a springboard of a way for Josh Heupel to ride for a very long time. Okay, and you can't ride that wave forever. Phillip Fulmer beat Florida in the Swamp in 2001, arguably Steve Spurrier's most potent offensive team. But he lost to LSU a week later, and everybody turned against him quickly.
I'm going to give you a scenario. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. So this scenario, I think, will undermine basically everything you said. It's brought to you by Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brake alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by nationwide warranty. Cherokee Blvd or online, qualitytirepros.com, qualitytirepros.com. Tell Bo that Dave Hooker said, "Hey, Bo," and Off the Hook Sports sent you. If Tennessee finishes 13, they could theoretically be a 10-win team, right or wrong?
Correct, they could.
Okay. If they win 10 games in the SEC and some college football playoff committee, of which has very little ties to the SEC. We were going over the names. I'd feel better about putting Caleb above 95% of the guys that are on there, guys and gals that are on there now. If they finish 13th because of a college football playoff political move, because the SEC has too many teams already in, and that's going to happen with the Big Ten or the SEC or both in a given year, that is not a reason for panic. That's a reason to get darn excited about winning it all in 2025. Caleb, finishing 13 and winning 10 games in the SEC is nothing to be disappointed about.
Well, okay, I need to change a little bit. I don't think they'd finish 13 with 10 wins. I don't. Now, let me be fair to you on something.
Okay.
They don't have to finish 13th to miss the playoff. They have to finish they could theoretically miss the playoff at 10th because there's 5 automatic bids. So remember, the committee's job, and they always say this in the NCAA tournament, because you always hear, you've heard a coach say this, right? We are obviously one of the 65 best teams in college basketball. The committee's not picking the 65 best teams. They're picking the 34 best at-large teams because there's 31 automatic bids.
Talk about basketball.
Right. So in football, it's not about finishing 13th. There's 5 automatic bids. It's either winning the SEC or being one of the 7 best at-large teams. I think at 10-2, Josh Heupel in Tennessee, there's no way they don't get in. They're not putting an undefeated group of 5 team in over Josh Heupel at Tennessee at 10-2. Now, one group of 5 team has to get in. That's the rule. The best one will. But I see on the message board someone says a 13-0 Liberty team playing 0 Power 4 teams. I guarantee you, I'm going to say this to you up front right now, Liberty is not going to the college football playoff. I don't care if they go 13-0, win every game by 85 points. I think the committee would take another power group of 5 team over Liberty.
I tend to agree with that. But getting back to Tennessee, if they finished, so by those parameters, if they finished 10 and finished 13th, or they won 10 and finished 13th, you would take them as, you would say you would or would not say that's a disappointment. And then I want to get into why you don't think that they would be 13th with 10 wins.
I don't think they would. Here's why I would say. On here. And by the way, let's be clear. They be 10th. Maybe they probably wouldn't be 13th, but they'd be 10th, but they'd still miss the playoff at 10th. Because remember, it's the 7 best at-large teams, not just the random 12 best teams, period. So here is why it's still a concern. If they miss the playoffs at 10-2, Dave, what that really means is they went 10-2 and the schedule turned out to be way easier than we thought. Either Oklahoma was really, really bad, NC State was really, really bad, something like that, and they have no quality wins on their schedule. And this is the point I'm making. Alabama's the last quality win that Josh Heupel's had. Don't give me Clemson in the Orange Bowl. I'm willing to give you, okay, I'll concede LSU. They got back-to-back weeks. They beat LSU and Alabama. So you know what? I'll rephrase. Heupel is riding a wave of a 2-week period where he beat LSU and Alabama in back-to-back weeks. Very impressive. And he really hasn't done anything impressive since, quite honestly. What did he do last year that was impressive? What was his impressive win? And I will say, I'm not giving you the Orange Bowl. I'll concede LSU, fine. I'm throwing the Orange Bowl out the window. Is that fair? The Clemson game?
I'm not going to go down this road for long because I get ripped on the message board, but managing Joe Milton's limited skills. I mean,
who did he beat last year while managing Joe Milton's limited skills? Who of any quality did he beat?
That's very fair, but that's a team with his limited skills and the injuries that Tennessee suffered that could have gone belly up. I give Josh Heupel credit for last year, whereas you think it was a down year. I think he overcame very, very significant injuries, some that we're not aware of, that were nicks and bruises that affect the receiver group in particular throughout the year. And I think he overcame a quarterback that wasn't a great fit for his system. So if you want to talk about coaching last year, I'm giving Josh Heupel a B+, given what he had coming into the program. Now, as a program, a guy that runs the program, maybe he should have put in Nico. Maybe he shouldn't have had Joe Milton in that place. That's a different argument. But as far as the X's and O's coaching last year, given the injuries in Milton, I'm sorry. I think that Tennessee did about as good as they could do.
I think fine. And I'm not actually saying that Heupel hasn't. Let me be very clear on this. And I guess I should be fair. There are some red flags that have shown, but I'm not trying to say Heupel should be on any hot seat or is in any trouble or has not done a great job through 3 years at Tennessee. I'm the one who said he should have been coach of the year in 2021. Okay, going 7-6 with that team, that's coach of the year. What I am saying, though, is now he has Tennessee where it needs to be. Is it fair to say, Dave, that Tennessee is where it needs to be under Josh Heupel?
Yes.
If it's where they need
just one
to
quote
be,
really quick I want to throw out there. Willie Martinez says at times I feel like I'm just there along for the ride because they're stepping in and they're offering suggestions and making corrections to younger players. His defensive backs are. So absolutely. Yes. I think the ball has now gone over the snowball has now gone over the hill and it's going downhill.
Exactly. It's where it needs to be. If it's where it needs to be, they shouldn't be missing the playoff. Okay. I'm sorry. That's just how this works out.
But that's how sports work out.
That is how sports work out, but if you're where you need to be, once the year is there, you got to deliver. Look, 2016, I'm going to go back to 2016. Butch Jones had Tennessee on an upward trajectory every year. He went 5-7 his first year, but secured back-to-back top 5 classes, then went 7-6. Tennessee won its first bowl game in 7 years in 2014. The next year, they went 9-4, had their first top 25 finish in 9 years that year, and 2016 comes, they return everybody. They have the most returning production of anybody in college football. They were top 25 the year before at 9-4, and everybody thought this is the year Tennessee wins the East. And they start 5-0, and then they lose 3 straight, and Butch Jones melts down, calls Tennessee champions of life, and the program crumbles because they didn't deliver when it was time for them to deliver. The program had arrived in 2016, and it couldn't deliver on the fact that it had arrived. The program has arrived in 2024. I'm not asking Tennessee to go win a national title. I'm asking Tennessee to be in the mix yearly, and Tennessee is at the level where they are now in the mix yearly.
For the record, Oklahoma would have been the 12th team at 10-2 if you want to go by the college football rankings at the end of the regular season last year. LSU was 13 at 9-3, Arizona 9-3 at 14. Louisville was 10-3 from a Power 5, 4-3, whatever conference we're calling it. But we know that's not a very good conference. Iowa was 10-3. So it can't happen. But I think what happens more oftentimes than not, would this be Tennessee's plight and would this be a disappointment? I'm just throwing this out there. I don't think 2 losses would get you in the SEC championship game. But may I offer this? Because I think what happened to teams is they took that late hit. You don't want to take that late hit. It shouldn't matter. It should be body of work, but where people recency bias factors in. So my question is, if Tennessee loses 2 games to Alabama and Georgia and loses to Georgia again, and they're 10-3, do they make the college football playoff? And if not, is it a disappointment? You have the final word, sir. I would say no, and I would say no to both.
I would say yes, because if they can't beat Georgia or Alabama this year, given 3 opportunities, when will they ever do it? And that's where I met with it. Now, you are right, and I'm looking at it. And by the way, not just Oklahoma, Dave, if the playoff this year were like last year, and you look at the teams and the divisions they're in, Oklahoma wouldn't have just missed it. Ole Miss would have missed it at 10-2 because of the auto bid that had to go to Liberty, who was brought up. And so I totally understand that. But this is, again, if Tennessee misses out, that means they had no quality win. And if they lose to Alabama at home, and then they lose to Georgia, and then they lose to Georgia again, and they have no quality wins, because this would also mean that Oklahoma and NC State weren't good, and I thought they would be, or at least NC State I thought would be good. If they have no quality wins and lost those 3 games, then they're still a tier below Alabama and Georgia. And Dave, if Josh Heupel's program, because if you lose to them 3 times and don't win 1 time, not just 1 in those 3 games, you're a tier below. If you're still a tier below, they will perpetually, forever under Josh Heupel be a tier below. And you don't want to be a tier below.
Smoky Mountain Red brings up a good point. If Nico had played more last year and we had a little more success than this year, would feel like a letdown with no making the playoffs. That's a good point. So if Nico would have taken over when I thought he should, and he would have played as well as I think he would have, then we're having a conversation now where there's a major, major red flag if they don't make the playoffs. I think you still have to factor, even though you and I are 100% confident in Nico, I will say that I'm more like 99 because I've seen these guys burn me before. So we still have to see it on the field on a Saturday consistently, right? Against quality opponents. So there is a possibility he could bust. I don't think it's going to happen. There's that possibility.
I don't think it's a possibility. I saw the Iowa game. I think that's enough for me to have hype behind him. And I think having started the year before is one of the most overrated things in football. If you're in the system and you perform, here's the thing. If you're in it's about how well you know the system. Starting at that point becomes how comfortable are you in an in-game situation. And that you don't develop that, Dave. Like, I'm sorry, you can call me crazy. I don't believe like in-game experience matters. I think that's one of the most overrated things in football. Am I crazy for that?
A little.
I think
big game experience or game experience, period.
Game experience is so overrated.
Oh,
like
no,
you either have it or you don't.
Not at this. No, not at this. Not first time. Now I will argue that you can be experienced enough where it doesn't matter if you've done it 5 years or 10 years. But I think the first time you go into Neyland Stadium as the starter and your adrenaline is pumping sky high, I think that's a challenge in and of itself, even though it's Chattanooga. I think that's a challenge to manage that. Now, I think that Nico is uber intelligent and he's going to do all this fine, but I don't think you can just say it's definitely going to happen.
I think it's definitely going to happen. And I'm going to give some credit real quick. One of the greatest things ever done. Tennessee played Syracuse in 1998, bringing in a new quarterback. You know they want to play close to the vest, right? They're like, oh, no, what do? On the very first offensive play of the game, they call a play action, roll Martin out, and have him chuck it downfield. Now, it was an incomplete pass, but they're making a very strong point. We are all in on T. Martin as our guy, and we're not going to hide the fact that he's our quarterback. No, we're building our team behind him to try to win us games.
Coming up, the COVID era is about to end for Tennessee and the NCAA. We shall discuss what that means for the Vols because Tennessee's done a great job of keeping guys around, and it's worked for other teams, I don't know, like Michigan. So how much does it affect Tennessee? 2 minutes with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. The show represented by Banks & Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. Play to win. Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
And the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford and Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Step up your game in this 24 Ford Maverick Hybrid, 25,515, 23 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $30,995, 24 Ford F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $59,757. Local you trust, performance you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
his vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Caleb, you got any wood around you?
What in the world?
I do. It's a wooden desk. Knock on wood. Tennessee's been really healthy in preseason camp. Just Jordan Thomas out for the season. Did you see that Texas has lost their top 2 running backs?
Yes, I have. Sorry, just the way you asked that question.
I thought you might find it funny because I know how you think. It's on our YouTube page. Take part in the poll question. Please do that.
I love when hookers ask me that question.
Yes. Right now, it's dead even. Is it panic time if the Vols don't make the playoffs in 2024?
Yes.
And it's basically 50-50. Yes, it's time. No, still growing. Well, that basically tells me, and I'm talking about pretty much all media, that Caleb and I are the only two, and I mean this sincerely. I'm not going to take a quarter of a century reputation and just lay it out in front of you. I know that sounded weird too, but I think you and I are, of all the media that cover Tennessee and even some national media, higher on Tennessee than anyone else. I believe they will end up in the Final Four. I don't have a prediction yet, but I believe that they'll find a way for Neyland Stadium to be a home playoff game, and they'll win one game and be in the Final Four. But I don't hear anybody else besides you saying that. And we're not trying to be the show of optimism. I mean, for goodness sake, Caleb yesterday just said that Josh Heupel could be on the hot seat if things don't go well in 2024. So I think we're open, honest, objective. I know we are. Objectively, I think you and I are the highest on Tennessee this season. And if we're wrong in December, come crashing down on us. I mean, I want to pay the price. I have no problem with that. But everything I can tell you is genuine, objective, and true based off all the people that I talk to, which I do every single evening, Caleb.
Here's where things are interesting. Because we're talking about this. The way people are with Tennessee, everybody's always scared to take the plunge of now. But nobody ever thinks, if not now, when. It's one of the most annoying things that's done in all of sports and in all of life, is everybody likes to talk about things down about the future, but never thinks now. Like, you ever been with your wife? You know, you've been married a pretty long time, Dave.
Thanks.
You know, you ever get frustrated, like you and your wife are like, hey, we should take a vacation here. We should take a vacation here. And then you never actually do it. You're just like, oh, you know, down the road, we'll do it. That's how people are with Tennessee. They're like, they'll be good down the road. But it's like, when is down the road? At what point do you say we're down the road? It's now. Okay. I think about this all the time with the NFL. When NFL teams, Dave, they constantly sacrifice a chance to win a Super Bowl now because they're like, we're building for the future. 15, you know, we want to be good for a long period of time. I'm like, guys, you got a chance to win a Super Bowl now. You take the chance to win a Super Bowl now. You figure out what you got to do after that if it doesn't work out. But you don't back down when the window is open. And 50% of y'all at Tennessee, if you're saying this, you're settling because if not now, when? If not now, when?
Yeah. If not now, when? But I will say this. I think we're in the minority. I think we think it's this year, and anything can happen in the playoffs. I'm not going to pick a championship, but I know you think Tennessee can do that. I think Tennessee can. I just find
I ask hookers that question all the time. If not now, when?
I guess when the check clears. All right. So, Caleb, 4 players were specifically mentioned by Josh Heupel after Tennessee's final scrimmage. And there were Peyton Lewis, Dont'e Thornton, Squirrel White, and I'm forgetting one. Help me.
DeSean Bishop.
DeSean Bishop. We talked about Bishop earlier. We think he's going to be the second string tailback for better or for worse. I don't think that it's any great surprise that with the who was the third? I'm sorry. We got Dont'e Thornton and specifically wanted to dive into Peyton Lewis.
Peyton Lewis, Dont'e Thornton, Squirrel White, and DeSean Bishop. Also talked about Chris Brazel a lot. He's talked about 5 because Chris Brazel too.
Why don't you just reset it up? I tell you what, I did a terrible job of that. Stumbled all over it. Go ahead.
Yeah, Josh Heupel has mentioned Peyton Lewis, DeSean Bishop, Chris Brazel has stood out in spring ball, Squirrel White, and Dont'e Thornton are guys that have stood out consistently while Josh Heupel's been talking as Tennessee's halfway through practices through fall camp.
So the question I want to ask you is, among those 4 players, what players that Josh Heupel has cited will have the biggest impact out of that group? One's obvious, right? Squirrel White.
Yes, exactly.
Let's take him out, okay? Because he's going to have a major impact. So what players...
Let's throw Bishop out because we've already talked about Bishop too. So let's just compare Lewis and Thornton and Brazel if you want to.
Okay. I think Brazel's more of a given than you. So I'm gonna slice it down even further because these are 2 players that could make Tennessee a different team if they suddenly emerge. What players that Josh Heupel cited after practice on Thursday will have the biggest impact in 2024? We'll put that on our YouTube.
Peyton Lewis or Dont'e Thornton.
Peyton Lewis or Dont'e Thornton. Those are your choices. What say you?
Peyton Lewis. Peyton Lewis would have a bigger impact. Peyton Lewis is, I keep saying this. Tennessee is in serious trouble if Peyton Lewis doesn't have an impact. And so I think the answer is very obviously Peyton Lewis because of that.
Okay. Well, are you picking with your mind or your heart?
With my mind. Tennessee doesn't have a feature back, so they need one. Peyton Lewis is crucial for them to be successful this year. So they have an issue if Peyton Lewis is not the guy. So I think because of that, Peyton Lewis more than anybody else is the guy they need him. And so I think they're going to try to make him work more than they're going to try to make Dont'e Thornton work. With Dont'e Thornton, it's one of those, if he doesn't work, we can go somewhere else. With Peyton Lewis, they're going to give him every excuse in the book to work out. And they're going to try everything to make sure he works out. They will ride or die for him as much as possible, the same way they will with Andre Carrick, because they desperately want them to work out, because they need them to work out.
Had Peyton Lewis started in the scrimmage and played more in the scrimmages, I would agree with you. But if I ask what players that Josh Heupel cited after practice on Thursday will have a bigger impact on the season, Peyton Lewis or Dont'e Thornton, I'm going Dont'e Thornton big time. I like Dont'e Thornton's athletic ability. We talked about that too much, so that's a given, right? But there was a reason given to me why he didn't have a great early first half of the season. And the reason was he put too much pressure on himself. That's a good reason. That's not, he showed up and he didn't have good practice habits and those sorts of things. I haven't heard anything like that. I've heard he was overwhelmed, and we've all been overwhelmed before. That's something that typically you overcome, whether it takes a couple hours at the gym or whether it takes a couple of days or whatever. I don't think he's going to feel overwhelmed this year. I think they're also going to find that he's more comfortable in outside receiver role than trying to force him in at the slot. So I think it's Dont'e Thornton. But I'll give you this. Seems as if our listeners and viewers agree with you, because he leads in our poll on YouTube. We want you to be a part of. If you're right and I'm wrong, then Tennessee has a much better season this year. If Peyton Lewis, I think Dont'e Thornton will accumulate somewhere along the lines of 400 or 500 yards. If Peyton Lewis gets in that realm, then he's going to go way beyond it. You're going to realize that he can handle pass pro and he's a good back, and put him in there and let's roll with it. That's what you're going to do. But I believe Dont'e Thornton at the end of the year will have more yards from scrimmage than Peyton Lewis.
I don't see that being possible. I mean, Dave, who would have Dave, think about this. Well, no, honestly. Okay. You think Brew McCoy is the number one receiver, right?
Yes.
You think Chris Braswell's now officially the number 2 receiver, right?
I think the number 2 is pretty much always a slot in this offense.
Wait, no. The number 2 wideout. The number 2 wideout. Excuse me. The number 2 wideout.
I do.
You think Squirrel White is the starting slot guy, right?
Yes.
Where the heck is Dont'e Thornton going to be able to come in to get 400 or 500 yards?
Well, some of those may be in garbage time, because you know that Josh Heupel isn't afraid to score a few more points.
Yes, but the problem is he needs a backup quarterback who can deliver those yards in garbage time. And whatever you think of Joe Milton, he was at least able to do that 2 years ago. I don't think Gaston Moore or Jake Merklinger can.
May I give you the ultimate Achilles to my argument?
Sure.
Okay, it's brought to you by Work Trucks. Work Trucks, they're all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle. Now, time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down and has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standard to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle from Work Trucks, the utility body trucks with Napod work bodies, Work Trucks cargo vans. They've also got special things like cranes and dump trucks. And if you're a contractor, that's Work Trucks with an X .LLC, Work Trucks with an X LLC.com, Work Trucks with an X LLC.com. Proud supporter of the Tennessee Vols. They'll have you fit to a T. Work Trucks LLC.com, Work Trucks with an X LLC.com. Perfect trucks, save you time. If you're a contractor, no Work Trucks. The other thing that I'm going to predict, because you have a strong argument that you haven't used yet, and that is Josh Heupel doesn't rotate his wide receivers. He relies on 3 until the game gets out of hand. I think that you will see some more wide receiver play because they have players that can do that. They have more players. You mentioned Mike Matthews, the freshman. I think Nimrod's a better than advertised player. And I think Thornton can contribute. Plus, there will probably be an injury along the way. Now, I will say this. Nimrod's probably going to get the first crack if there's an injury over Thornton. So, again, I'm strengthening your argument. What do you call that? Iron Manning, or what do you call that?
Steel Manning?
Steel Manning. So I'm steel manning your argument. But I think there's going to be enough of an opportunity still in this passing game, and I believe there'll be too much uncertainty about Peyton Lewis's pass protection, and that's why you'll see Dont'e Thornton have a bigger impact on this offense than Peyton Lewis in 2024.
Okay.
Did I win any of that argument, or I just strengthened the argument?
You make a point, but I still think Peyton Lewis is going to lead the team in carries this year. At which point he would just naturally have more yards than Dont'e Thornton. Now, someone's asking, and because I know this can be confusing sometimes when I say feature back versus all-purpose back and getting the most yards. When I say feature back, because someone asked, what does Caleb mean by feature back? There's going to be an all-purpose back. That'll be Dylan Sampson. He's going to be the flashy one that gets all the yards. He's going to get a ton. There's going to be a power back. There's going to be a power back in Khalifa Keith. A feature back is a person that just on an average down-to-down basis, you have this person in, and you don't know if they're going to take a handoff. You don't know if they're going to stay back to pass pro or if they'll be dropping out in the flats. They kind of are your regular every down back. Dylan Sampson is a specialty back. He's in on specifically designed plays. The same with Khalifa Keith. Tennessee's a feature back is not in on specialty designed plays. A feature back is in down to down, oftentimes, regardless of what you're doing. I don't think Dylan Sampson can carry that burden. I don't. He's too small. Or how about this?
Okay, but what about the fact, me get your take on this, but what about the fact that when Josh Heupel went undefeated at Central Florida, his backs were about the same exact size? Answer that in 15 seconds.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
All right. Answered that, Caleb. His backs at Central Florida were about the same size. We discussed it earlier. I think you too easily dismissed that.
He was in the American Athletic Conference. The talent was way less. And two, I'll say this, I bet his backs played a little harder. I think Dylan Sampson's lazy. I think he doesn't want to pass block. And I don't care. And you know what? He can hate me all day for saying that. I watched the Iowa game last year. That was at the end of his sophomore year. This wasn't a freshman running back, guys. Okay, so 2 years ago, Dylan Sampson missed a block. Hendon Hooker got draxed on that and fumbled the ball. To Dylan Sampson's credit, he picked it up and made a play out of it. That was as a true freshman. This is the Iowa game, the end of his sophomore year. And he missed 3 blocks easily, got Nico Iamaleava killed. You don't do that at the end of your sophomore year. I've watched a lot of running backs over my time, Dave, and so have you. They figure things out by their sophomore year. Okay, this is the end of his sophomore year. You're not going to pick up pass pro at the end of your sophomore year if you haven't done it. At that point, you just don't care to do it. There's a reason, by the way, as a sophomore, we saw Dylan Sampson down the stretch. Best player on the team last year with the ball in his hands, right?
Yes.
Why did he not get more touches last year?
I think it's pass pro.
And was he a freshman?
Yes.
No, he wasn't. He was a sophomore.
No, sorry. It wasn't.
Yeah, he already played. I'm sorry. Jamal Lewis, who I'm sure was thinking about his NFL future, picked up pass pro 4 weeks into the season. And they said that was a problem. Have you ever heard of a player not figuring it out by the end of their second year in a team?
I want to ask you this before we get to Hooker's Corner. I'm going to post this on our YouTube page. I do want to remind you that portions of the program brought to you by TriStar Hats. For the latest in TriStar Hats, go to the original TriStarHatsCo.com, TriStarHatsCo.com. Use the promo code HOOKED for 10% off. Caleb, the last poll question we had, what players that Josh Heupel cited after practice on Thursday will have a bigger impact? Dont'e Thornton, 54% of the vote. Peyton Lewis, 45% of the vote for the record. And then I'm going to change gears slightly on you, and that is size-wise. Are you worried about Dylan Sampson's size? So far, the majority are saying no, quicks matter. Yes, too small. I know how you feel about this, but I am of the mindset that this is the type of tailback in Dylan Sampson that Josh Heupel wants. Now, I'm not telling you they have a backup that Josh Heupel wants, but I think this is a tailback. If Jabari Small was back, who would be the starter, Dylan Sampson or Jabari Small?
I think Jabari Small. I do. I think Jabari Small.
Disagree. Jalen Wright, Dylan Sampson.
Jalen Wright. He was there last year, and so was Dylan Sampson, and Jalen Wright started.
Well, but you do have to factor in. Now, I'm just telling you about kids. I've covered a lot of kids, and these are young men / kids. He came in thinking he was the third string tailback, and he was underclassman, and he knew he had time. He also knew that NFL scouts would be looking at his junior tape a lot more than his sophomore tape, and bowl games are fun. There is an opportunity that Dylan Sampson was a little bit immature because he was uber talented, and he didn't have the impact last year because of a trio of tailbacks and because he was a little immature. There is that possibility that he could take a major leap.
You were suggesting he was lazy last year on pass pro.
Not lazy.
That sounds lazy.
I mean,
that sounds like, why am I not going to try that hard for this? Because I'm not going to get the yards I want.
I never question effort unless another player tells me. And the reason is I believe uncertainty can look like a lack of effort. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't times where you can't see somebody completely dogging it, like running down the court on defense in basketball or something. I mean, there are times, but I'm more likely to give the benefit of the doubt in that situation.
Well, okay, but that's even a bigger red flag if there was uncertainty. Dylan Sampson was a sophomore. That was the end of his second year last year when I was seeing him miss those blocks. You shouldn't have uncertainty issues. Pass pro is not this complex thing to pick up, guys. It's not for a running back. It's you identify the linebacker blitzing and you block him. That's what you do. So it's one of the easiest things to figure out.
Well, not easiest things to figure out.
It's one of the easier ones. We've always agreed running back more than any other position is probably the number one position where players can step in as true freshmen or as rookies in the NFL and star, right? And isn't that because there's not a lot of learning you have to do?
Yeah, but I don't think it's the easiest thing. I think you're exaggerating a little bit on that. Asia Cafe, treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine handcrafted from guarded family recipes. AsiaCafe.org, because they have 5 locations in which you can pick up that awesome Brazilian coffee energy booster that comes from the Lim Dynasty, and it is unbelievable. Established since 1909. I tell you what, Phillip Bloom's carried the torch for 3 generations in his family business, and this coffee will make you feel absolutely fantastic. So try it out. So do you believe, lastly, before we get to a prospect that you're going to want to know about?
No, we want to talk COVID after this.
Yes, COVID after this. Do you believe that Peyton Lewis will have over 400 yards rushing this year?
Yes, I do. I think it'll happen against NC State. They're going to try to make Dylan Sampson work, and he's going to miss a block, and Nico Iamaleava is going to be on the ground, and everybody's going to be holding their breath and praying to God that he's not hurt. And at that point, Josh Heupel's like, I can't have this guy out there. He's getting Nico killed.
Okay. I think he's going to be good in pass pro this year.
You keep telling me that. I don't think he will.
Okay. We'll see. I don't know that Chattanooga is going to blitz him ever. So
I didn't say Chattanooga. I said the NC State game.
Right. We might not know for a couple of weeks because Chattanooga blitzing would not be a good idea given their talent deficit. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. All right, so we're coming upon the end of the COVID year. And how would you, the COVID year time period in which I think that we're going to call it. So we all know that you just basically 2020 didn't count. You got another year. Caleb, how much credit do you give to Josh Heupel's staff for maintaining a roster that is older than most and has guys like Cooper Mays that wouldn't be around if not for a COVID year? I think they've done a great job of taking advantage of that.
I do too. So for those curious, because 2020 was never going to count against your eligibility, you could have played that year and it wasn't going to count against you at all. So the last year that will be a factor for any roster will be 2025. Because if you were a true freshman in 2020 and you chose not to, and you didn't redshirt that year, you could redshirt in 2021 and then have 4 years of eligibility, 2022 through 2025. So this is the next to last year. So it's coming to an end. I think Tennessee has taken greater advantage of that than most, and I think that's a huge reason Josh Heupel was able to build the program more quickly than we thought. Credit to him for doing that. 2022 doesn't happen without Hendon Hooker, who took advantage of the COVID ruling, came back and was you talk about men amongst boys. It wasn't like he looked more physically better conditioned than people he was going against, but Hendon Hooker just came across as significantly more mature than everybody else in the SEC that year, didn't he? You just felt like he was a man.
I totally agree. And some of the guys I see in person, it's like, this is different. You know, this feels like covering an NFL locker room, which I've had. So how much does it hurt Tennessee now that it's gone away? I would argue, or it will go away after next year. I would argue that, Caleb, they have done such a good job of building the roster to this point that I don't think it's a major concern, because I think the depth is going to be there without having to pay guys to stay around Knoxville.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and funny enough, I was the one who posed this question: is Tennessee in trouble? Because they're going to benefit from it again this year. I mean, let's talk about it. Cooper Mays, Amari Thomas, those guys, Dave, they should be in the NFL, and they're staying at Tennessee, and they are very mature players who are also very physically gifted and are going to look like men amongst boys. Javonte Spraggins. But I think because of the recruiting Heupel's done recently and what he's doing for 2025, he will have the roster stacked to where it needs to be. It's a little different from between Tennessee and Michigan. So both operated on similar models. Michigan ran a those who stay campaign last year, where they cobbled up NIL money to encourage players to stay instead of going to the NFL. They didn't focus on recruiting. They focused on keeping their guys around. That's why Dave pointed out multiple times they look like men amongst boys last year playing football, because all of their linemen, for the most part, so many of them were 4th, 5th, in some cases even 6th-year guys. And it showed in the Rose Bowl, where Alabama, which throughout Nick Saban's tenure is safe to say was, you don't want to say it was like the Calipari of college football, but it was a factory of, they're a pit stop for the NFL, right? Alabama players made it. And lack of discipline could become an issue for Nick Saban, because the guys he's coaching are oftentimes so young. And that really showed up against the Michigan team that had played together for 3 years to that point, and they didn't make the mistakes Alabama was making in that Rose Bowl. And that's why Michigan won, because Alabama had more talent than Michigan. It really wasn't close. Michigan just wasn't making the key mistakes. Michigan isn't going to be able to recruit at that high level going forward because they put all their effort on just that returning talent. I think Tennessee will be okay in that regard.
Do me a favor, hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed if you haven't done that now. And I'll tell you a big reason why. I think that Josh Heupel runs a mature program that won't be as affected as, say, a Michigan would if Jim Harbaugh were still there. I feel like he wanted mature guys that would take coaching, sometimes harsh coaching that didn't have to be babied, and that's how he is. I don't think it affects Josh Heupel as much, because I know I use this word too much for you, as culture, but I think that Tennessee has a strong culture where freshmen tend to grow up fast, and that's what they'll have moving forward. Caleb, you are very accountable in this football program. Great football teams police themselves. I believe this program is on the verge of that, or it's probably already there already.
Oh, I think they're already there. They were doing that in 2022 with Hendon Hooker, who was policing people. And the problem was there were some other recruits and players, Jeremy Banks, who didn't like it. But I do think they're that way. The one concern with Tennessee is, will it last? You're not going to have 6th-year seniors in the program forever. And at that point, does that self-leadership, if you're recruiting at the level that Kirby Smart or Nick Saban was recruiting at, does that self-leadership and policing yourself, can it still work when your leaders are sophomores and juniors? Because the truth is, at Alabama, Dave, and you know this, they were winning titles, and I think this was what's so impressive about Nick Saban. Nick Saban did have to lead those teams because they didn't have the maturity a lot of times to lead themselves because they were so young and so talented.
Okay, let me ask you the other part of this question, as we're going to talk about Cooper Whitten here in just a moment. I remind you, you've got to join Hooker's Corner. Even if you're a free member and subscribe to this station, you can win a $1,000 Garmin watch from Rick Terry, a Rick Terry jewelry design. There's the QR code. You also can do more than that. If you want to join just for $9.98 a month, you will get increased recruiting coverage, interaction with me and Caleb Calhoun, and the opportunity to win, like, what's right over my shoulder, that Joe Milton mini helmet autographed by the man, Joe Milton. That's right. He's going to be the starter for the Patriots. Caleb, but everybody's going to be on the same plane, right? Everybody is going to have the same age of players. Then the underclassmen become more important. Purely X's and O's question. Is Josh Heupel's offense better suited to take a young player and plug him in right away than the average offense. Let's say what Georgia runs. Georgia's not tempo. Georgia's not anything crazy and out there. I don't know that anything's really pro style in college anymore because of the downfield blocking rules, but that's about as pro style as I can think of off the top of my head. Caleb, does Tennessee's offense help them with young players? Because I'll be honest with you, I don't know right now.
I don't either. I'm going to say this. I don't know if it does help with young players. And let me just say it this way. I think Josh Heupel has to work to keep them a level head. But, Dave, you've covered one of the reasons I think how many high-flying offensive teams have you covered over the years that they just look invincible offensively? They drop 60 points on everybody. Then they just run into a physical team in postseason play, whether it be college or pro, and they just wet the bed. All the time, right?
A lot. I mean, yeah, a lot. I mean, that's why I'm 99.9% on board with Bingo, but not 100.
Right. Here's why I think that happens. When you're a defensive-oriented team, every game you're winning, you're slugfesting and grinding it out. So you're ready for that, right?
Yes.
When you're an offensive-oriented team and you're just scoring at will all the time, I think mistakes creep in that you don't worry about as much because it just feels too easy when it's not that easy when you run into a physical team. I'm just going to say it, guys. There's a reason Steve Spurrier never went undefeated at Florida. I think sometimes, maybe I'm crazy, but his whole running up the score and things like that, you think it got to Florida's head in certain moments. And like the 95 game Nebraska, they felt they were going to outrun Nebraska and beat them with speed, right? And they weren't ready for getting punched in the mouth.
Agreed, because they got punched in the mouth. They got punched in the mouth really, really hard. How about a guy named Cooper? And it has nothing to do with the Mannings. That's pretty good. Brought to you by Medicare Misty.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Remind you, licensed in over 40 states, and also Medicare Misty does not charge anything for her services. That's pretty awesome. Hooker's Corner take coming up as we have a prospect you need to know about. First, debate on the message board that you wanted to address, Caleb?
Yes, because I'm seeing a lot of this on the message board right now. There's a lot of talk that Jabari Small actually had a PFF grade that was lower than Dylan Sampson's in terms of pass pro. Now, guys, I want to break down PFF real quick. I've never been one to discount PFF. I'm actually a fan of it. I use it a lot, but blocking is the hardest thing to grade for PFF because so much of it is team blocking and schematic blocking. And
I will say I don't trust any of them. I don't trust that at all.
Yeah, and for context, Andre Carrick had a higher PFF grade at left guard last year than Jerome Carver did the year before. Does anybody really believe that Andre Carrick was a better blocker than Jerome Carver the year before?
Yeah, I think PFF's good for skill positions, but not even really quarterback, if you consider that a skill position. I think they're blocking. There's just too much that you don't know behind the scenes. All right, Hooker's Corner. You can order Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind Tennessee's 1998 national championship. The QR code is there. Caleb, today we want to talk about Cooper Whitten. Whitten, surely it's not that Whitten, but yes, it is. Cooper Whitten, son of Jason Whitten. Tell me about this prospect. Make me feel old because I covered Jason Whitten throughout his time at Tennessee.
Totally different type of player. Cooper Whitten is actually a safety. Already has a 4-star rating on 247 Sports. He is for the class of 2027.
2027.
Yeah, which means that he's entering his sophomore year, coming out of Argyle, Texas.
Now, wait a second. He's 6'2", 210 entering sophomore year. Why do you think he's a different athlete?
Well, they're listing him as a safety.
Yeah, he's not going to be a safety.
So you think he's going to emerge into a tight end by the time he's a junior
or a linebacker? I mean, is Jason? A lot of people that are 6'4" or 6'3" sometimes are listed at 6'5". Jason Witten's a legit 6'5". So this kid's going to be a couple of inches taller. He's going to put on at least 20 or 30 more pounds. Yeah, I think this is a defensive end or tight end prospect in 2 years.
I could see that. Okay, so either way, he is already a 4-star on 247 Sports. Now, Dave, you cover recruiting rankings more than I do. Is it possible he only got that rating because he's Jason Witten's son? And in Texas? Well,
it's possible he got that rating early because he's Jason Witten's son. Like you would fast track this because you know that we would want to talk about it and other people would want to talk about it. So he has a 247 Sports of a 4-star rating, 25th best prospect in the nation. Again, this is going to change a lot. Second best safety in the state of Texas because he goes to Liberty Christian there in Argyle, Texas. Of course, Jason still has a home in the Tri-Cities, but he also has a home in Dallas where he played for the Cowboys, and he's the number 5 overall prospect in Texas. Now let's get to the really tough question. Does Jason Witten's time at Tennessee help the Vols recruit Cooper Whitten or hurt the Vols in recruiting Cooper Whitten?
I'm going to say it hurts. I'm going to say Jason Witten knows how to be diplomatic. It's not because Phillip Fulmer lied to him and converted him to tight end. I think Jason Witten's actually very grateful for that move now, looking back 20 years later. But I think it's because, one, he was underused when he was at Tennessee. And I don't think Phillip Fulmer was very much in his corner when he was trying to get drafted. And so he fell to the 3rd round. And consensus was that he wouldn't be like Jeremy Shockey. He was better than Jeremy Shockey. Anybody who covered him or watched him knew he was better than Jeremy Shockey. And I heard this, Dave. You covered the program at the time. But one of the reasons I had heard Whitten left early was he felt that he should have been getting more touches than he was. And
I've not been told that. And he doesn't seem like a selfish player to me, but he probably should have. So if he felt that way, it wouldn't surprise me. I think he also wanted to support his family. He had a really rough upbringing. And I'm talking extended family. His grandfather was very involved in his upbringing. And I don't believe Jason wanted them to wait on cash anymore. Let's remember, this is before NIL money. And I think he took care of them, and that was important. Now, I don't think Jason would have left if he knew he was going to fall to the 3rd round. That's the issue. It's not moving him from defensive end to tight end. Now, still, Tennessee's coaches at the time, all new coaches now, so it shouldn't be a factor, but this is the backdrop. Tennessee's coaches at the time sat in his living room, told him that he was going to play defensive end. Within 2 weeks of camp, less than that, I think, they moved him to defensive end. So it's hard.
Tight end. They moved him to tight end.
So it's hard for me to be in that position as it would be hard for you and not think that you just lied to me, right?
Right.
You didn't change your mind a week into practice. You just did.
No, they knew they were going to lie from the start. They knew they were going to lie to him from the start. Okay. They just couldn't let him get out of Tennessee because they were going to lose him to Michigan, right? Was the team.
His recruitment actually came before I started covering recruiting, so I don't know.
I think maybe it was Michigan. Michigan was the one they were going to lose.
Well, he took it out on Michigan. So, but here's my concern. Somebody at the University of Tennessee, and I don't know who it was, but I have on very, very, very good sources that they were saying he's not ready for the NFL. That he's a young guy. He's an East Tennessee guy. That he's not going to be that good. That's why he slipped to the 3rd round. So that to me would be the major issue. I have an idea of who that person was. I'm not going to say who that person was because I don't know 100%. But I think there was some sandbagging that went on in Jason Witten's recruitment from the NFL because Tennessee was upset he was leaving early. That to me would be the biggest thing to overcome. Now, the flip side is all of those names that could possibly have been involved in such a nefarious move are now gone. The flip side, I keep flipping it. Would a great tight end be a good fit for this offense? I mean, we think Ethan Davis is going to be good, but I think it's almost secondary to having great receivers. Now, you would take a great pass rusher no matter what. But yeah, I think there's a lot of backstory there, and I think Tennessee will be a factor right now. For those wondering, it is very, very early, but you've seen Baylor nearby, Duke, Missouri, Oklahoma, TCU show some interest. So we'll continue to keep an eye on that. And supposedly those schools have offered. But this is going to be a prospect that Tennessee fans are going to grow to follow, unless he just rules out Tennessee for some reason, because I think that the Vols will be in play with Whitten. Maybe I'll know more about Monday. I'll reach out to him and get his thoughts. But Tennessee didn't help itself with the way they handled his recruitment from high school to college and college to the NFL.
Yeah, and one of the backstories, I think, this is why I think that one of the reasons I think they sandbagged him was because they knew it could look bad on their staff if he started to ball out in the NFL as he did, because it would make them look bad for not using him more than they should have. And I do believe that.
Well, they may have, but they probably just wanted him back because he was a great player.
Yeah, but it wouldn't do them any good long-term to sandbag him. I mean, they're not that petty, are they?
You get another year out of an All-American top of tight end?
Oh, so you're saying they were trying to sandbag him in hopes that he would come back? Like they were trying to force. Okay, I see what you're saying. I thought you were saying they were trying to sandbag him after he had already left.
No, you do the sandbagging when coaches are talking to you about him before the decision.
Yeah. So here's another.
You sandbag them after, you're just a jackwagon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Oh, right. Yes, absolutely. Here's what I think too that adds to that: the sandbagging.
So I was told that may have happened too.
Really hurt Tennessee in recruiting throughout the mid-2000s. I know this. Guys, players in the pros talk. They talk, and they connect to high school kids. And I think it got out that Tennessee did that to Jason Whitten. And
there's no question. Yes, it's common knowledge in the football circles that I run in that happened. And I do think it hurt Tennessee, and I think it hurt Tennessee's entire coaching staff when somebody asked about a player. So I think players slipped under the last 5 or so years of Phillip Fulmer's staff. Phillip Fulmer's staff. I think they're slower than they should.
Right. And, on a broader scale, because if we think about, would this hurt Josh Heupel? One of the things, do I think Josh Heupel may have sandbagged a player? I think he sandbagged Jeremy Banks. But do I think anybody cares that he sandbagged Jeremy Banks? No. Because I think Jeremy Banks deserved to be sandbagged.
But that's not sandbagging. That's just being honest.
No, you're right. You're right. That's true. That's just being honest. That's a great point. Yeah. I think because Jeremy Banks wasn't drafted, he could have come back for another year. And someone pulled Josh Heupel to the side and asked him about Jeremy Banks. Dave, you and I both know we don't even have to cover the program to know that Josh Heupel gave a thorough and honest answer about the type of person Jeremy Banks was.
Yes, he did. He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Covered a lot. We join you weekdays at 10 a.m. Hit that like and subscribe button. I'll remind you, you can purchase the book that has a ton of backstories in it. Celebrate 98, the untold stories behind Tennessee's 1998 national championship season. And also, we highly encourage you, if you're watching this, you're either watching our full show or you've joined Hooker's Corner. So if you're watching our full show, we want you to join Hooker's Corner for increased recruiting coverage, prizes, and more. We're giving away that Joe Milton autographed helmet. Just for being a free member, you can win a Garmin watch worth over $1,000 thanks to Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. I want to thank Sports Treasures, over 5 million sports treasures, 35 years, North Knoxville. They're awesome. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm